Hello and welcome back to my channel. I've actually never filmed here before. This is my third year uni house. I'm back in Lancaster for about a month before I'm moving out for good, and I'm going to be returning home and leaving Lancaster forever basically until I come back and visit. I just want to say sorry for all the technical issues that I've had while recording this, and thanks for being patient. I'm really sorry that there's been so many issues, but it should be fine now. I am right next to quite a busy road and it is quite noisy, especially in the day, so you'll probably be able to hear traffic going by. I'm really sorry, hopefully it's not too disturbing. So today's video is a little different. If you've not watched my YouTube channel before, I've just finished my degree at Lancaster studying biology, and next year I'm taking a gap year and then hopefully I'll be going to medical school, but who knows, to be honest. So the reason I wanted to make this video is because this month is chronic headache and migraine awareness month or something along those lines, and it's something that I have mentioned a few times on my channel and it's probably not very clear and a bit confusing, so I thought I would just come on, sort of tell my story and my experiences with the chronic migraines, and then if I ever mention it again, because it is very relevant and important to my life, I can just refer to this video. And I thought it would be an opportunity to raise awareness. Before I sort of start, I'm just going to sort of tell my story about my experience. It's also, if you're at all interested in the NHS and treatments to chronic migraines, this might give you a little bit of info. Obviously it's not, I haven't tried every treatment under the sun. It might be useful, interesting to anyone who's interested in any sort of chronic illnesses and how it's treated. So I think one of the reasons there is awareness month is because if anybody has a chronic illness, the treatment that you get from staff and from people that you know can be quite different. Sometimes not everyone understands it in what it is. Similarly, I think migraines and headaches have quite a confusing reputation, and what they really are to some people isn't what a lot of people think they are, if that makes sense. So if I say migraine to you, you might think a really bad headache, maybe a sharp pain, you have to lie down, maybe that's what you think, I don't know. That's probably my impression before I was diagnosed. And the term sort of chronic migraine and chronic headache encompasses so much and so many different symptoms. So after I sort of tell my piece, which hopefully won't be too long, I'll sort of talk a little bit about other people's experiences as well, where you can find help and where you can find out more information. So from my memory, the first migraine I ever had, I was about 11 years old, so I think I was in year 7, and I remember I was at my grandma's house and I basically couldn't see properly. It's very hard for me to explain the visual aura symptoms that I get, but what happened is when I would look at something directly, I couldn't see it. I could see my periphery, and it's not like it was dark, it's like a light spot, and it kind of is moving. It's quite similar to when you look at a light and then it's sort of like in your eyes for a bit and you can't see properly. So that would happen when I would look directly at objects, even though I could see my periphery, and it's like it moves as I move and look at different objects. That object I can't see properly because it's sort of like, it's like a visual disturbance. Sometimes I get it the other way around, but I can see direct objects and I can't see my periphery. And that lasted for about 15 minutes. And I don't know why, looking back, but I really wasn't that disturbed by it. I was just like, okay, I must have been looking at something bright. I remember it was in summer, I think just before I started secondary school. So that was just kind of what I thought was going on. I got a numbness in my hands. It's like it's not quite like pins and needles, but it's like a heavy numbness. And the numbness spread from my hand up my arm. So as it moved like to my arm, I got feeling back in my hand. So it literally moved up. It didn't spread, it just moved. And it moved up my arm, up my neck, and then to just one side of my face. So my cheek, the inside of my mouth, literally like my tongue split down the middle, was like numb and kind of tingly, but not quite pins and needles. It's not painful, it's just very heavy. Almost what I imagine if you eat like a fruit that you're allergic to, for example. A very like tingly, almost swollen feeling, very heavy, and also kind of pounding. And again, I don't know why I wasn't disturbed. I didn't even mention it and talk like to any of my relatives. But then I started to get a piercing headache, and for me it's always on one side of my head. It does feel like a knife is in your head, but it's also quite pounding, and it definitely gets worse when I move. So I was sitting and then I basically said, I'm gonna go lie down because I've got a headache and I don't feel too great. So when I had the first two things, the visual aura and the numbness, I felt fine. Obviously it was a bit weirded out, but I felt fine. And then obviously I got the headache, and I just, after those symptoms, so I just went and lay down for a bit, and then I couldn't sleep, but I was just lying down and then I remember going to the bathroom because I felt really nauseous, and then I just threw up. As soon as I threw up, I felt instantly better. The headache was gone, the nausea was gone, and I felt so much better. And I remember going downstairs and being like, what the hell, I just threw up, but I feel absolutely fine now. And then that was sort of my first experience, and at the time I didn't know what was going on. I just thought maybe I had food poisoning, I was ill or something. Even though I felt instantly better after I threw up, I didn't really know what was going on. Then later in the year, I remember having this happen to me again. I remember it happening at school, and I can't really remember, but I was like, this is so weird. I remember this happening, and I remember sitting in the, like, trying to explain to the teachers. I was like, look, I have this really weird thing where I lose my vision and my hand and my face goes numb, and then I throw up and then I feel better. And I was like, I don't know if it's just what's gonna happen, but I need to go home. And they wouldn't let me go home because my school was super strict, and also they probably didn't believe me. And I was trying to explain, like, this is what happens to me, I don't know why it happens, but I'm gonna feel sick soon. And obviously I didn't feel sick at the time because I just had like vision issues, but they were like, what is wrong with you? So I sat in the office, and then eventually I started to feel really sick, and it was like, please can I go home, I feel really sick. And I also lived really close to my school, but they made my mum come and pick me up, and I remember as soon as I left the school I threw up in the street. So it was almost like, it was like I knew it was gonna happen, and also I think I hadn't eaten anything, literally just throwing up water. So it definitely couldn't have been like something I ate or anything like that. That was in around March time, I think, and then it happened again in the summer. I woke up with a piercing headache, and then I got all the symptoms, and then I was sick, and then I felt fine. And this was like something that happened, so this had happened like 3 times in about a year, and then it didn't happen for another year. And then I remember it happened again when I was at school, and I went home, but I think I wasn't sick this time. I think I must have just laid down. And then a week later it happened again, about 14 at this time, and I woke up with it again. I had all the symptoms and I was sick, and then it literally, I think I went away until I was in year 11, and I remember I had one in year 11 near to my exams. At this point I was like, what is this? Like, what is actually going on? Like, it happened quite rarely, and I just used to think, okay. And I remember actually I went on holiday, and my parents drove to France, so we had a really long journey, and I remember coming back and waking up and this happening. And I think that it was around that time, and I was like I should probably get this checked out. I can't remember if I knew what it was at the time. I might have googled it and figured out, oh, it's a migraine, and just thought nothing of it. But then I think I eventually booked a GP appointment, and I just remembered I actually have the information that I was given at my first GP appointment. So I went to an appointment, and I saw a GP, obviously, and I just must have explained my symptoms, and I said, it doesn't happen that often, I throw up most of the time and I feel better, but between sort of the initial symptoms and throwing up, it's like hours of nausea, like sitting on the bathroom floor, just like, you know, and maybe it's a bit graphic, but you know when you sort of just, you can't even swallow your own spit, like you spit it out because you feel so sick. And also, if you know, especially that time in my life, I had a super bad phobia vomit, so I couldn't force myself to be sick. And if I was in public, I would panic because I'd be like, God, in an hour I'm gonna be sick, like I need to go home. Like I said, I wasn't sick all the time, but I was always nauseous pretty much. So I went to my GP, and I got given this, he's printed out some like papers for me, and I think this was when I realised that what I got is not necessarily what happens to everyone. So there's a big difference between migraines and migraines of aura. So I get migraines of aura where I get all these warning signs as signals that I'm going to get migraines, and because they were so infrequent, I couldn't track it to anything. I couldn't figure out why I was getting them. I couldn't see any patterns. So just to read a little bit, a migraine is a condition that causes attacks, episodes of headaches, other symptoms such as feeling sick, being sick are also common. Between migraine attacks, the symptoms go completely. So migraine is common in about 1 in 4 women and 1 in 12 men develop migraine at some point in their lives. It mostly starts in childhood or as a young adult. Some people have frequent attacks several times a week, others have them now and then. So migraine with aura includes a headache, usually on one side of the head, typically the front or the side. Sometimes it's on both sides, sometimes it spreads, sometimes it moves. I've definitely had ones where it's moved from like the left to the right. Moving your head makes it worse. It gets worse or peaks after about 2 hours, and eases off, can last 4 to 72 hours. So mine was pretty much always solved by sleep. I would usually wake up with it, have a whole experience, be sick, and then by the time I slept the next day I would wake up and be fine. As I got a bit older, I would sort of have like a hangover migraine where the next day my head would still be a bit sore, but way better, and I would feel a lot better in general. Migraine symptoms that are common are feeling sick, being sick, not liking bright lights or loud noises, other symptoms include being off food, blurred vision, poor concentration, stuffy nose, hunger, diarrhea, tummy pain, passing months of urine, going pale, sweating, scalp tenderness, sensations of heat or cold. So in terms of aura, visual aura is the most common type. Temporary loss of part of vision, flashes of light, objects that may rotate, shake or boil. Numbness and pins and needles are the second most types. Usually starts in hand, travels up arm, involves face, lips and tongue. Problem with speech is third most common, and also odd smells, food cravings, feeling of well-being and other odd sensations. I personally don't think I have a warning phase. Like, they often take me as a surprise. In fact, they always take me as a surprise. If I'm really, really tired or I feel really low, I think, oh, I might have a migraine tomorrow. I never have a migraine. If I'm perfectly happy, getting on with my life, I'll have a migraine. It's completely random. Then you get the aura phase. If you have aura, then the headache, then the resolution. So the resolution usually starts after being sick for me. Some migraines are linked to menstruation. There's other types as well, and I'll leave the NHS link if you're interested in reading about the other types of migraines. So I'm gonna just finish talking about my experience then with medication after I went to the GP, and then I'll come back and talk about triggers. When I initially went, I basically said, look, the headache is dealable. I can sleep it off. Like in general, I'd say I have a high pain threshold. Like it's not, I don't know, for me, it's not the most worrying. The vomiting was like the big thing. I was like, I want to know that, take some sort of pill where I think, okay, I'm not gonna vomit, so I'll be fine. So the doctor prescribed me, I think it was just one single prescription, and it was some antiemetics, and he said buy 300 milligrams aspirin, which is over-the-counter aspirin, and take 3 doses of it, so 900 milligrams, and then take 2 antiemetics, so 5 pills in total. And I don't know what the brand was of the antiemetic. I think you can be prescribed it for a lot of different things, but they were just little pills. And I think the very first time I had a migraine and I took that, I got the visual aura and the numbness, but then I didn't feel sick, but I still did get the headache. But I was like, okay, this is great. And I can't remember how many times I took that. That was sort of what I used to carry with me everywhere. And there were a couple times where I had not taken it straight away. So I think the general case for migraine medication is you need to take it straight away for it to be like the most effective. And then over that whole exam period, I would pretty much have a migraine every night before one of my exams. I remember before my A-level biology exam, the first one, I had a migraine, and I remember my mom coming into my room, it was the evening before, and I was crying, and I was like, I'm gonna get a migraine at my exam, what am I gonna do? And I think, to be fair, I had gone to a teacher and said, look, what am I supposed to do in an exam if this happens? And I managed to get a letter from my doctor explaining the migraines, and then I was allowed to have rest breaks, which means I could have left the exam hall to take medication. But there is absolutely no way I could do an exam if I can't even read the paper. But this is something that there's no way around it, I guess. But luckily to this day, I've never had a migraine in an exam, which is great. But anyways, and so after that, I had so many migraines throughout the A-level period. I was like, this must be down to stress. So I went back to the doctor and I was like, look, this is not working. Is there anything better? And the doctor that I spoke to was a doctor that I'd seen when I was a little kid. It was a different GP to the original one. And I explained I was taking the aspirin. He said, you're asthmatic, you can't take aspirin. And I was like, I'm not asthmatic. Turns out I'm asthmatic. A few years later, I finally got all the tests done. But he was like, I don't think you should take that. So he prescribed me medication called Migraine. Back in the day, this is what it looks like. It used to be prescription only, I think. And then it was behind the counter, but you still needed a prescription. And now it's just over the counter. The one that I was actually prescribed had 2 pills, pink and yellow, but essentially this has got painkillers in it. It's got paracetamol, codeine, and it has bakelizine hydrochloride, which is an anti-emetic. So this is aimed at people who feel sick from their migraines. And it has a pink pill where you take 2 pink pills as soon as you get or as soon as you feel the migraine happening, and then you take, if it hasn't gone 4 hours later, you take a yellow pill. In my life, I think I've only taken the yellow pill once, because normally this was doing the job. And then I think I came to uni, and my first 2 years of uni, I think I had 2 in first year. And I think both of them actually, I woke up with them and I would take the Migraine. And the first time, because I hadn't had one in such a long time, I couldn't read the instructions because obviously my eyes were really funny, and I was like trying to read how many do I take, and I thought, I think I only take 1, and then I take 1 4 hours later. So I just took 1, and it obviously didn't work too well, and I wasn't sick, but I remember feeling super nauseous, sitting on my bathroom floor trying to like distract myself from how sick I was feeling. Yes, but otherwise it was fine. And then I remember in second year, at the end of second year, I had a migraine, and I took 2 of these pink tablets, and then I actually threw them up, and I was like, oh shit, this really didn't work. And then I felt instantly better, and I hadn't eaten anything. So when I often wake up, have a shower, then I take the tablets, I usually haven't eaten anything. Obviously I feel sick, or I know I'm gonna feel sick, so I don't eat anything. So I end up just throwing up pink tablets, which is absolutely disgusting. But it isn't just like instant, it's like 2 hours later after I've taken the tablets, throwing up these pink tablets. I later found out that when you have a migraine, your stomach stops digesting anything, and that's why it actually makes it super hard to digest any medication, which makes sense because I would throw up these tablets and they clearly hadn't really dissolved or been digested. And then I was kind of like, okay, I left uni after second year, and then in the summer I think I literally had a migraine a week. I think at points I had 2 migraines a week. This is all running up to my UCAT exam. I was having them so often. I found if I took the migraine relief after eating, it worked pretty well. But if I took it after I'd just woken up and had an empty stomach, they didn't work. And unfortunately, at least half of my migraines I would wake up with, which is super annoying. And either I would end up throwing it up or just feeling super sick, and then it would pass. And I actually remember the day of my driving test, I woke up at around 6 a.m. I took the tablets, I had the aura, I was like, please work. I ended up throwing up. I went and did my driving test on an empty stomach after throwing up with like this hangover migraine just like pounding. And I somehow passed, to be fair, but you know, this is the kind of effect it has on your life. I then went to an appointment and I was like, look, this is not working, I need something better. So it was around this time that I joined some Facebook groups and I realised there was a lot of different other medications, and that now migraine relief was over the counter. This is probably just what anyone can buy, and I was like, no, I think I need something prescription because this is super serious and annoying. And I basically said, could I get something preventative? I think just before this as well, I'd gone to the optician and I talked about the aura, and she gave me a letter to get referred to a neurologist, but I actually lost the letter because I'm an idiot. So yeah, I basically requested a preventative. So I got prescribed 2 different drugs. I got prescribed sumatriptan, which was basically, triptans are one of the, I think maybe the only class of drugs to treat migraines, and you're supposed to take them as soon as you get a migraine, and it's supposed to stop the migraine in its tracks, right? And then I asked if I could go on something preventative because I was getting them enough for it to be deemed as chronic, because I was getting them like once a week, of different severity bearing in mind, but I was still getting them once a week, and they were super disruptive. I couldn't work, I couldn't, when I had my driving lessons, I couldn't drive obviously, I couldn't do anything but lie down and wait for it to pass, and it would usually for me be anywhere between 2 to 8 hours depending. And obviously before I wasn't getting them that regularly, so it was kind of manageable, but it was getting to the point where they were so often, like I was thinking, how am I going to get through my last year of uni? And so the preventative I was prescribed was propranolol. I can't remember how much I was prescribed, but I was supposed to take it, I want to say twice a day. And basically propranolol is, but this is the issue, because I had asthma and I was taking an inhaler, which is steroids, so that relaxes your, it's a relaxant basically, isn't it? It relaxes your airways. What happens when a migraine happens is your blood vessels in your brain, I guess, on your head, they dilate, and that causes the headache and all the symptoms. So the symptoms must be when the dilation is happening and your body knows you're going to have a migraine. And then the idea of propranolol is it reduces your blood pressure or your heart rate, and then your vessels don't need to dilate as much. But obviously I'm taking a steroid inhaler, which is supposed to dilate your vessels and relax them. So I was like, look, my asthma's quite mild, so I'll stop taking the inhaler and I'll take this. Like, in terms of health priorities, if I can stop the migraines, I'll live with being a bit wheezy, and I'll figure something out. So I took that, so this is from about October to December, and I remember having a migraine, like I woke up with one, so I took my morning propranolol and I took the sumatriptan, and it worked okay. I went back to sleep, but I did feel quite nauseous. But I was like, okay, it was on an empty stomach again, maybe I'll give it another try. I think I was prescribed 6 tablets. And then I came home over Christmas and I had literally one of the worst experiences of my life. I woke up with a migraine around 8 o'clock. I took the sumatriptan, I went back to sleep, and then I woke up again, and then I had like more aura symptoms. So when I say I woke up with a migraine, I mean I woke up with the visual disturbances. So I had it twice. I was like, that's super weird, that's never happened to me before. Once in my life I've had 2 migraines in a row, but they very much felt like 2 periods, and that was when I took the yellow tablet. So then I was like, okay, super random. And then I think I felt quite well, so I went and I remember I ate some bread and some hummus, and then later on I just started to feel so nauseous. I got the numb feeling. This is from like 8 AM when I woke up. This is about 3 o'clock now. I started to get the numb feeling. I was like, this is so weird, my migraine's really been longed out. I took sumatriptan again, but basically I ended up throwing up. And like I said, I've never thrown up food other than the very first migraine I had, because in general, migraine relief or antiemetics worked if I'd eaten, and I would only really maybe maybe at most feel a bit sick. And the issue was more that when I'd woke up and I'd not eaten anything, I was finding it really hard to digest the migraine pills, any pills at all. And then the next day I woke up again with migraine. I was like, what the hell? So I took sumatriptan again, and usually if I'd had a migraine, I think that was the first time I've ever had a migraine the next day. Usually I'd have at least a week breather or at least 4 days in between 2 episodes of migraines. Bearing in mind as well, this was Christmas. I wasn't doing a lot of work or anything. I only had 2 pieces of gauze. I wasn't that stressed. And then I went back to sleep and I felt fine, and then around midday I got the aura symptoms again. I can't remember if I took sumatriptan again, but I ended up throwing up again, and this is when I was like, sumatriptan does not work for me. If I had not taken anything, I probably wouldn't even have thrown up necessarily because of the food. The way it dragged out the migraine, and I haven't even mentioned that I had a constant headache. It did not go away, and I don't even like saying headache because it is like such horrible pain. It's nothing like headache in a way. But yeah, I basically was like, Jesus Christ, I need to go on something else. The propranolol isn't working because I'm still getting migraines, and the sumatriptan is not stopping the migraines either. So I was like, this doesn't work. And when I got prescribed sumatriptan, I said, can I get prescribed an antiemetic as well, because that's the big issue. And the GP said it should just stop the migraine in its tracks, so you shouldn't need to take an antiemetic. Clearly wasn't true because I was throwing up every time. And like I said, at this point I usually wouldn't throw up unless I'd woken up with a migraine, and even then I wouldn't always throw up. So I was like, this is making my migraines worse. So I went back to the GP, and it was every single GP I've seen has been a different GP, and I've had to re-explain my story, and I don't think she really understood what I was saying at all, because I was like, look, I need something I can take on an empty stomach, something that dissolves out. I was like, I don't want to try any more triptans because they really do not work for me or for my migraines. I was like, is there anything else I can take? She ended up prescribing me some antiemetics, and I don't know why, because I don't see why I would have been able to digest them. There are some sprays and stuff like that, but they're mostly triptans, I think, or at least that was offered to me, and I was like, I'm not having any of them. So I was like, you know what, if I've eaten food, I'll just take migraine relief, because it does actually work if I've eaten. And I thought, oh, if I haven't eaten, I can try the other antiemetics, which are, these are cyclizine, which, this is buclizine hydrochloride. And I was like, is there any other different preventatives? I'm really interested in preventatives because I think ultimately I'm going to find it very difficult to find a drug that will stop migraines. Can I get prescribed to something preventative? And then I got prescribed amitriptyline, 25 milligrams, which you take once a day. And I started taking this. It made my mouth super dry at the start, but that eventually went away. And it also made me quite sleepy, so I would take it in the evening around 9, but then I would find it really hard to wake up. It's actually an antidepressant, although I think the dosage is a lot lower than people would normally take for antidepressants, but it does mean I can't just stop taking it. So with the propranolol, I stopped taking it after that really bad episode I had around Christmas. I kept getting migraines after that, but I was just taking migraine relief. I finished all the triptans that I had, so I didn't ask for another prescription. And amitriptyline was put on repeat for me, and I had 2 migraines in about March time on the amitriptyline, and I just took the migraine relief. Both of them went in the evening, luckily. Then I just like went to sleep, had a little nap, because amitriptyline makes you sleepy in general, and then it would go away and it was fine. And the migraines were just super mild, and I think part of that is the migraine relief because it was working really well in terms of like the pain aspect of it was either the migraine was less severe, but the paracetamol and codeine really works. And then obviously I came home for lockdown. 12 months later, I haven't had a single migraine. I have been migraine free for, I think it's nearly coming up to 100 days almost, and I've just been taking the amitriptyline. The dry mouth's gone away. In general, it doesn't make me tired in the evening anymore, but I struggle to get up. I don't know if that's down to the amitriptyline or just me in general, but I feel like I finally found something that for now is saving my life. A lot of people in the Facebook groups do say that it stops working for them, or they have some people on much higher dosages, but I think I'm definitely, unless I get to a dose that is getting crazy high, I'm going to stick with this because it's definitely working for me. And like I said, not really any side effects other than not being able to wake up, and when it's been in lockdown, that's been no issue really. There's lots of other different things that you can try, so I'm not saying this will work for everyone because it definitely doesn't. Some people have good experiences with propranolol. I'm not sure the exact mechanism of how amitriptyline works, but I'll be linking NHS pages to everything I'm talking about. So I just want to talk about triggers. So one thing that a lot of GPs will ask me is what triggers your migraines, and every time I'm like, look, I don't know, nothing triggers them. The only thing I've been like kind of been able to find a link with is caffeine. So I was actually drinking coffee when I got those 2 migraines when I was on amitriptyline, and I've stopped drinking coffee. But I used to drink coffee when I was like 15, just before they started getting quite bad. And then I abruptly stopped because I was like, I think there's a link here, and I definitely think that is the one thing that causes them. But if I don't drink any coffee, it doesn't mean I'm not going to get any, because when I had really bad phases at uni, I wasn't drinking any coffee then. So some people, there's a lot of different triggers. I also felt like sleeping too much was a trigger for me, which obviously with amitriptyline makes no sense. So I don't think it was, because I've been sleeping more than ever. Not enough sleep, any sort of issue with your routine. If you break your routine, I think can definitely trigger migraines. So I think a lot of people who get chronic illnesses have to keep a routine to prevent any flare-ups. In general, there is nothing really understood about migraines in general. The Migraine Trust is a really useful website, and there's very, very little funding, even though migraines are more common than like asthma, diabetes and epilepsy combined, or something crazy like that. They're super common, but they are much more likely in women than men, and I think that really sums up why there's zero funding. In terms of like doctors who become neurologist specialists, very few of them specialise in headaches and migraines, even though again it's so common. Again, all these facts are on Migraine Trust, but there's like literally no research into it. Another thing that might cause them is stress. I think maybe because I've often get them around exam period times, but I often get them when I'm relaxed, and I try and explain this to the doctor. There's a thing called a weekend migraine, where you have a really stressful week, and then on Saturday you get a migraine, and it's like the loss of that stressful routine and sort of like the crash of like being relaxed gives you the migraine. It's almost like a relief. It's super frustrating, because when you have loads of stressful things and then you can finally relax and do fun things, it's like, no, you stay in bed because you're gonna throw up because you have a migraine. One important thing is that I can't have anything with estrogen in it, so I can't have the combined pill. That's only for people I think who get aura, but if you have a history of headaches, usually they make you take the progesterone only pill. And then a lot of people find other patterns of smells, or like for example, people saying wearing masks at the moment is quite triggering. But I think a lot of people who get them quite chronically opt for preventatives. Again, triptans are quite popular. I think they work for a lot of people. Like I said, not for me, but I'm happy for everyone they work for. And yeah, I think it's quite frustrating when healthcare staff ask you about triggers. I really don't think just lifestyle changes, at least some would have such a big impact on my quality of life. Like I would always opt for a drug preventative. Like obviously I don't drink caffeine, that includes Coke or any fizzy drinks like that. I've tried giving up chocolate and things like that, but I'm vegan now anyway, so I haven't noticed any big difference. I think it's quite annoying when they're like, okay, well, what triggers it? Obviously I can be like stressed. How am I going to eliminate stress in my life? I'm at uni, like what am I supposed to do? Like I literally have exams. There's always going to be stressful things in every person's life. Even if I cut out those stresses, there'll just be different stresses, and it's not feasible. And I think this is the impact that chronic illnesses have on people's lives and working lives. I don't know, and it's kind of frustrating when doctors who, to be honest, have one of the most stressful professions are like, oh, just be less stressed. Like I can't do it. Can you prescribe me something? Like it's just, I feel like that is not really a valid treatment, and maybe it's because there are no treatments. It's not a doctor's fault necessarily, but it's just kind of frustrating. And I think as well, chronic illnesses, I mean, it's not just chronic illnesses, but from my experience, there is really no one size fits. I'll post the migraine groups that I'm part of on Facebook, but you see the difference in people's experiences. Some people don't get any aura symptoms, some people never throw up, some people get super bad sort of face. Like I definitely feel like my face is like quite wonky, and I definitely feel it's because I often get numb on this side of my face, and I've never actually looked in the mirror but when I've had a migraine, but some people can have really noticeable sort of like slumping face, and I'm pretty sure if you get migraines you are at higher risk of strokes. And there's a lot of different treatments. There's Botox treatments, there's acupuncture, there's the dye piercing, which I am planning to get, but again, some of these have very mixed results, and a lot of them are anecdotal evidence of just people saying, I did this and it really helped me. And I think that's what you kind of have to just do. Like there isn't a lot of choice. Like people say don't have too long hair or tie hair up because that might give you a migraine, or you know, drinking coffee, for example, I would recommend to anyone don't do that if you have migraines, but it's super different. Some people find drinking caffeine when they get a migraine, because I think that constricts your vessels, that really helps. Yeah, I don't know, it's just, I don't know why they don't know, it's so common, but I guess everyone has their own interest in terms of like, there should be more research into this, more research into that. This is my personal opinion, because it affects me obviously. Migraines are also genetic, but no one in my family gets them other than me, so, or at least in the way that I get them, so clearly I'm the one who got this new mutation. But yeah, this video I realise is super long. As I'm recording it, I've spoken for like 45 minutes. Hopefully I'll cut it down to a lot less. But yeah, it's good to bring some awareness to these things if you didn't know about them. It's something to add on your radar, and maybe consider if someone says they have a migraine, or if you often say you have a migraine, think about what that really means. I think there's nothing wrong if you're having a more milder migraine than me to say you have a migraine, but I think it's worth remembering that it is a spectrum and it means different things to different people. For me, it's something that's super debilitating, and to be honest, I consider it a disability because of the effect that it has on my life. At the same time, it doesn't mean it will be to everyone. Some people will be worse, some people will be easier. It doesn't mean you're not having a migraine, but it's just worth remembering that it's really different for everyone, and it's very reassuring when I meet people who get the same sort of aura symptoms as me, maybe not as common. Like my director of studies, I went to sort of ask for some help in terms of getting exam conditions and stuff, and she said that she gets very similar, except without the vomiting. So at least she sort of understood that I wouldn't really be able to write an exam if I can't see, and my right hand is numb. How am I supposed to write? But yeah, there's no sort of moral here. I just wanted to come on and talk about my story. This might be interesting if you don't know anything about it. If you get migraines, maybe you can relate. But yeah, if you have any questions or anything, I'm happy to answer them. Like I said, there'll be a lot of different resources that I use in the description. If you have any tips, I probably tried them, but you know, send them my way. But other than that, I'll leave this video because it's so long. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.